Hey everybody! In today's stories, the rules were followed to the letter, and the people who wrote them, well, they spent the rest of the day regretting their life choices. Story 1 is from Malicious Compliance, titled The Day I Was Hired and Fired by a Law Firm. So this happened about 5 years ago. I worked as a chef at a bakery. My job was to make everything except the baked goods. Every morning, the baker and I would walk in about 4 a.m. and knock out all the food needed for the day, leaving us ready to head home around 10 a.m. That timing put us in the perfect window to deliver large online orders on our way out. The delivery in question was for Bob, James, and Harry, attorneys at law. Every financial quarter, they held a massive meeting and needed roughly $700 worth of bagels and bagel accessories, 8 dozen bagels in all 10 flavors of cream cheese, pastries, brownies, and enough coffee to power a college dorm through finals week. My passenger seat, entire back seat, and trunk were packed floor to ceiling with food. JNHOA is located on the 9th floor of a downtown commercial skyscraper. Parking was non-existent. There were meters out front, but I knew I'd need to make close to 10 trips to unload everything and didn't have that much change. Company policy was just to pay whatever fines I needed and turn in the receipts. The building had its own parking garage, so I pulled in. The security guard, let's call him Sam, stops me immediately. "Employees only," he said. I showed him my delivery invoice and offered him a bribery bagel. He refused the bagel and pointed me to the 6 guest spots on the bottom floor. Fee, $5 every 30 minutes, $10 minimum. I thanked him and headed down. All 6 guest spots were taken. I drove back up and spotted an empty reserve spot labeled Guest of BJNH. Perfect. I pulled in, grabbed the most critical item first, the coffee, and headed for the stairwell. The elevator required an employee keycard. The lobby button worked fine. 9 flights of stairs later, I was outside the law firm, setting down the coffee and heading back for trip number 2. That's when I saw Sam talking to the receptionist. He ran over and started shouting, "I'm putting a boot on your car. I told you to park in the guest spots." Before I could say a word, he launched into a speech about security protocols. That's when a very well-dressed man walked over. It was Bob, the Bob of Bob, James, and Harry. Bob asked what the problem was, and the two of them got into it. He's delivering food from my meeting, and he's allowed to use my parking spots. "Those belong to the building. You lease them. I decide who parks there." "He's not an employee." "Then I'm making him an employee." "You can't do that." "Harry, get over here." Harry walked over with an amused look on his face. Harry is head of our HR department. Harry hired this man. Harry pulled out a piece of paper and scribbled, "OP is now a member of Bob, James, and Harry's," and signed it. I signed it too. Bob reached over to the receptionist, who already was preparing an employee badge, a parking permit, and an elevator keycard. "Now please," Bob said calmly, "do the job I hired you to do and deliver my bagels." Sam looked on in pure fury as I rode the elevator down to my car. 7 sweet elevator rides later, every last item was delivered. Bob and Harry met me at the table. Bob said, "You've made great strides at this company and I'm proud of your work, but I feel it's time for us to part ways. Here's your final check." He handed me a crisp $50 bill. And Harry said, "And here's your severance package." He handed me a 20. The receptionist validated my parking ticket on the way out. Sam watched as the machine accepted the validation and let me leave for free. I could see him glaring in my rearview mirror all the way down the ramp. I can't decide if I think that security guard is more like Day from the Friday series or if he's more like Paul Blart Mall Cop. Let me know in the comments. we're heading to story 2. This one is also malicious compliance, titled Good on You, Steve, you absolute legend. My coworker, an absolute hero, maliciously complied with security on one of our subcontractor jobs. The customer was a manufacturer of high-end electronic components. Security was tight. A small 4x6-inch box could contain $250,000 worth of microchips. Our team was installing equipment in their facility for a week. A security checkpoint had to be passed every trip in or out of the building. The security guard, call him Chad, decided my coworker Steve was more suspicious than the other 4 technicians on our crew. So every trip, in or out, not only was Steve made to dump the entire contents of his backpack on the table, Chad required him to show him the last 5 photos taken on his phone to prove he wasn't stealing secrets. Everyone else walked right through. Steve tried to stay positive. He'd crack jokes and say things like, "Thank you, Paul Blart, for keeping America safe," which cracked up the rest of us. But you could tell it was eating at him. On Wednesday, as we headed to the checkpoint for our lunch break, Steve needed to use the restroom first. He came back a few minutes later looking absolutely giddy. Chad stopped us on the way out and asked Steve for his camera roll. Steve handed the phone over cheerfully. Chad was greeted by some peculiarly angled photos of Steve's backside. "What the?" Chad threw the phone down on the table. "Oh, sorry," Steve said in all innocence. "I thought I had hemorrhoids and wanted to see how bad it was. Is everything okay with my photos? Is the facility secure?" Chad never checked Steve's materials again. Not once for the rest of the week. Good on you, Steve, you sick, glorious man. I don't know, maybe Steve thought that Chad the security guard was moonlighting as a proctologist in the evenings. On to story 3. This one is PettyRevenge, titled, You're Right, That Wasn't Exactly a Pound. I worked as a cook at a chain restaurant that ran a wing night special. A pound of wings at a discounted price. We didn't actually weigh them. Our specs called for 8 wings per pound, 4 drums, 2 flats. One night a table came in and everyone ordered a pound of wings. A little while after the food went out, the server came back flustered. One of the guys at the table was complaining that it was obvious he didn't get a full pound. His reasoning? It would be a huge coincidence if every person at the table happened to get exactly the same number of wings. He insisted that the server bring the order to the kitchen to be weighed on a discounted plate of wings. So we weighed it. It came back at 1.5 pounds. So we told the server to bring it out and let him know he was actually getting more than he paid for. She looked at us, then at the plate, and said, "Heck no. He paid for 1 pound, he's getting exactly what he paid for." She picked up 2 wings and threw them in the trash and weighed the plate again. Still a little over, so she threw out 1 more. Bang, on 1 pound. She walked back over to the table and said calmly and pleasantly, "Here are your wings, sir. You were absolutely right. There was more than 1 pound there, so we removed the extra ones. Good catch." When the table ordered a second round, not a single person questioned getting 8 wings to 1 pound. Oh well, he did get what he wanted. For our last story of the day, it's an HOA story, titled, I'll Let You Know Every Time I Use My Trash Cans. I've never met anyone who says, "Oh good, an HOA," but here I am. We all have trash cans, but the sight of them offends certain delicate sensibilities in my neighborhood. So I fully complied with the new rules stating that bins must not be visible from the street. Then I found a violation on my door. I called in and asked why. The notice read, "Bins in the driveway with lids off." I asked if this happened to be on a Tuesday. Sure enough, it was. Wednesday is pickup day. I was cleaning them out. I was using them. I explained this through gritted teeth. "Oh, okay," said the rep. I'll remove the notice. Fine, but how do I prevent this from happening again? Well, I guess you could notify us. Alright, I'll notify you every time I use my trash cans. Oh, that won't be necessary. Clearly it is. That was 5 Tuesdays ago. This morning, promptly at 10 a.m., I called to let Alan know I was about to use my trash cans. Alan paused on the other end of the line and said, "You know what? I'm just gonna put a hold on any trash can notices for your address." Hey, that would be swell, Alan. That would be swell. I'm sure we've heard the old saying that rules are made to be broken. Well, in these stories, we learn that some rules aren't made to be written. If you're enjoying the stories we have for you, YouTube is giving you some other options that are just as funny and worth your time. Maybe it'll help break up the monotony of the day. Maybe it'll be a great way to de-stress from your day. We'll be here for you. Click on the screen now. The videos are totally worth it. I'll see you over there.